If you've ever read through the book of Job and you open up to its first 2 chapters, you would have to think this was something that's taking place perhaps in the New Testament, because it's talking about a cosmic battle of sorts between God and this character Satan. But that's not quite the way this is working out. In fact, what we're going to see is that God has summoned the sons of God to a council meeting, and something's going on. We saw in our previous session that the book of Job opens with prose. That is, it's just a narration of certain events, and it opens like this. There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was blameless and upright, one who feared God and turned away from evil. There were born to him 7 sons and 3 daughters. He possessed 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, and 500 female donkeys, and very many servants, so that this man was the greatest of all the people of the East. His sons used to go and hold a feast in the house of each one on his day, and they would send and invite their 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. And when the days of the feast had run their course, Job would send and consecrate them, and he would rise early in the morning and offer burnt offerings according to the number of them all. For Job said, "It may be that my children have sinned and cursed God in their hearts." Thus Job did continually. So the first thing we notice here is Job is really acting like a priest. Now this would tell us this setting is pre-temple, pre-tabernacle. This is Job doing something that you wouldn't expect to be done if there was a tabernacle or a temple. So this is ingenious, because what the writer has done in setting this up is he has set the scene as if this is an ancient story. That's the first thing we note. And we see that all of the measures in the ancient world of someone who was extremely wealthy and blessed have been now given to us. All right, he's a very wealthy man. He's blameless and he feared God. So he was someone who actually knew the Lord. All right, so then we come to this next section. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before Yahweh, the Lord, and Ha-Satan. And if you have, for example, in the English Standard Version, it has a footnote right there immediately as that's introduced, and it says the accuser or the adversary. And now, the reason the translators are telling us that is because this expression Ha-Satan is not a name. It's got the definite article in Hebrew, ha. And so we have this role, this job description, the accuser, the adversary, also came among them. Now, the sons of God are almost certainly creatures, heavenly creatures, who are not what we might call your average, ordinary, run-of-the-mill angels. Now, I'm not sure if there are ordinary, average, run-of-the-mill angels at all, in the sense that I think even if we met an ordinary angel, to use the term, we would probably be scared witless. But these creatures are something other again. They are called the sons of God, and we meet them in Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 8, where it says to each of them was assigned a nation. So these creatures have some sort of territorial responsibility to act on God's behalf for the assistance of mankind. Now, with that in mind, it appears to echo what's happening in Psalm 82, where a calamity among these beings has happened, and God now calls I'll call it an emergency divine council meeting. But now we have not an emergency one, but a divine council meeting. And what we have here is this character, the adversary, the Satan. It says, he also came among them. The Lord said to Satan, "Where have you come from?" Satan answered the Lord and said, "From going to and fro on the earth." and walking up and down on it. And the Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man who fears God and turns away from evil? Now, here's the question that Job puts in the midst of the divine council. So you have an innumerable number of these watcher angels, these sons of God, these super beings that were created by God to interplay with the affairs on earth. And here's this creature, Satan, who fulfills the role of the adversary. God's made a claim that there is someone on the earth who is blameless and fully devoted to him and takes great care to atone for the sins of his children. Now, the question is answered amazingly. Then Satan answered the Lord and said, does Job fear God for no reason? Have you not put a hedge around him and his house and all that he has on every side? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land. But stretch out your hand and touch all that he has, and he will curse you to your face. And the Lord said to Satan, behold, all that he has is in your hand. Now, what's going on here? What we have is a claim made by God that here is a man who is blameless, upright, who loves God, who wants to be careful that sin is atoned for. He wants so that he has an unimpeded relationship with God, a God whom he's never heard, he's never spoken to, we presume, and yet he still loves God, he serves God, and the adversary has said, ah yes, he only does that because of what you've done for him. And God says, no, that's a claim that needs to be put to the test. You see, it's in a council meeting of the sons of God, and here is someone, the adversary, who's given an opposing view. He's not upright and blameless in all he does, because his motive is that he will love you because you bless and protect him. And God says, no, let's put that test to the claim. So here we have, behold, all that he has is in your hand, only against him do not stretch out your hand. So Satan, the adversary, went out from the presence of the Lord. And then we see from this point on that Job loses part of his family, part of his property, and then we come again to chapter 2 again. There was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and the adversary, Satan, also came among them to present himself before the Lord. And the Lord said to the adversary, from where have you come? Satan answered the Lord, from going to and fro on the earth and from walking up and down on it. And the Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man who fears God and turns away from evil? He still holds fast his integrity, although you incited me against him to destroy him without reason. So here we have an echo of the first meeting. And God is now making the point, you were wrong. This, you said he only loves me and serves me because of what I do for him. Well, I took that away, and he still does. So now we have a greater accusation. When, in verse 4, Satan answered the Lord and said, skin for skin, all that a man has he will give for his life. But stretch out your hand and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will curse you to your face. And the Lord said to Satan, behold, he is in your hand, only spare his life. And now we, the readers, are aware something is going on. And we continue. So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord and struck Job with loathsome sores from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head. And he took a piece of broken pottery with which to scrape himself while he sat in the ashes. Then his wife said to him, do you still hold fast your integrity? Curse God and die. But he said to her, you speak as one of the foolish women would speak. Shall we receive good from God, and shall we not receive evil? In all this, Job did not sin with his lips, and that sets up the book of Job. Here we have a man who is now experiencing great evil. And the writer, the assembler, the editor of this book wants the next generation to know life may not go the way you want, but you don't shake your fist at God. God is a good God, and he has good reasons for doing what he's doing. And we know this because we're given the privileged access to why this is happening. Because the claim is there are people that only love you, God, because of what you do for them. And God is saying, no, they love me. Not for what I do, but for who I am. This whole story is about the worth and value of God, Yahweh. Is it worth being in covenant with him? And the writer of the book of Job is going to say, absolutely. Trust him no matter what. We set up the story, verse 11. Now when Job's 3 friends heard of all this evil that had come upon him, they came each from his own place. Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite. They made an appointment together to come to show him sympathy and comfort him. And when they saw him from a distance, they did not recognize him, and they raised their voices and wept, and they tore their robes and sprinkled dust on their heads toward heaven. They sat with him on the ground 7 days and 7 nights, and no one spoke a word to him, for they saw that his suffering was very great, and very great it was indeed. And so what we have now is that these 3 friends are offering what would be the standard response, the standard replies. You've done something wrong. You must have done something wrong. You must have sinned. You must have cursed someone. You must have not given justice to the poor or to the widow or to the orphan. You must have done something or not done good, or you've done something, because bad things don't happen to good people when they do right. We hear this all the time. And this is going to be one of the questions that comes out, particularly in the Exilic Literature, and the book of Job is going to deal with it. And then we're going to jump through the dialogue, past the dialogue. We're going to go straight to chapter 28. And this is why this is no doubt a part of wisdom literature. Job chapter 28. Surely there is a mine for silver and a place for gold that they refine. Iron is taken out of the earth and copper is smelted for the ore. Man puts an end to darkness and searches out the farthest limit, the ore in gloom and deep darkness. He opens shafts in a valley away from where anyone lives. They are forgotten by travellers. They hang in the air, far away from mankind. They swing to and fro. As for the earth, out of it comes bread, but underneath it is turned up as by fire. Its stones are the place of sapphires, and it has dust of gold. And it's a picture of people mining, digging deep down into the earth to find it says here, sapphires and gold. And if that's the extent to which mankind would go looking for sapphires and gold, how much more should they go looking for something that is more precious than gold and jewels? And that is wisdom. So what we have is this question, verse 12. But where shall wisdom be found? And where is the place of understanding? Man does not know its worth, and it is not found in the land of the living. The deep says, it is not in me, and the sea says, it is not in me. It cannot be bought for gold, and silver cannot be weighed as its price. It cannot be valued in the gold of Ophir, in precious onyx or sapphire. Gold and glass cannot equal it, nor can it be exchanged for jewels of fine gold. No mention shall be made of coral or of crystal. The price of wisdom is above pearls. The topaz of Ethiopia cannot equal it, nor can it be valued in pure gold. From where then does wisdom come? And where is the place of understanding? It is hidden from the eyes of all living and concealed from the birds of the air. Abaddon and death say, we have heard a rumour of it with our ears. God understands the way to it, and he knows its place. For he looks to the ends of the earth, he sees everything under the heavens. When he gave to the wind its weight, and apportioned the waters by measure, when he made a decree for rain, and a way for the lightning of the thunder, then he saw it and declared it. He established it and searched it out. He said to man, and this is where you find wisdom, and this is an expression that will occur in the other wisdom literature portions of the Bible as well. Verse 28, behold, the fear of the Lord, that is wisdom, or the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and to turn away from evil is understanding. And so now we have in Book of Job a statement that is echoed in the other biblical wisdom literature books as well. And so now we go again past the dialogue exchanges. We have this extraordinary moment when Elihu turns up. Who is this Elihu? Where did he come from? And it's amazing to me that some scholars will say, he wasn't named among the three counselors, so where's he come from? Maybe this has been added and it's completely out of place with the original story. I find that extraordinary. We find that Elihu turns up, and what he does is essentially prophesy. He prophesies against the three comforters. He calls them, his elders. He says that these men, should have known better, and he was afraid to speak of them. And so we have this section of prose starting in chapter 32. So these three men ceased to answer Job because he was righteous in his own eyes. Then Elihu, the son of Barachel, the Buzite of the family of Ram, burned with anger. He burned with anger at Job because he justified himself rather than God. He burned with anger also at Job's three friends because they found no answer, although they had declared Job to be in the wrong. Now Elihu had waited to speak to Job because they were older than he. And when Elihu saw that there was no answer in the mouth of these three, he burned with anger. And Elihu begins to prophesy. He begins to speak as the oracles of God. And so in 34, hear my words, you wise men, and give ear to me, you who know, for the ear tests word as the palate tastes food. Let us choose what is right. Let us know among ourselves what is good. And what we're going to see here is Elihu is saying, we may not know why this has happened to Job, but we know this, God is good. God is not the author of evil. And we, the reader of the book of Job, we know that that's actually the case, because we've been told this is not orchestrated by God, this is orchestrated by the adversary, Satan. And so when we have Elihu saying to Job, you can't vindicate yourself as being completely perfect as God is. He's right. Elihu is right. And what happens is, as Elihu begins to worship God through his prophetic word, we come into chapter 37 and we see that Elihu is extolling the beauty and the wonders of God. And then, as often happens when the prophetic word is given, when a word from someone who is in tune, who is hearing from God speaks, we come to chapter 38. Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, who is this that darkens counsel by words without knowledge? Dress for action like a man. I will question you, and you make it known to me. Now this could be Elihu speaking prophetically now, as it was with the other prophets who would say, thus saith the Lord. But now we have the voice of God being heard as he speaks. And so God now asks Job 66 questions. And this is a profound moment, because what we have here is the account of Job all the way through going, why God? Why? What's happening? I don't understand. And so then we have this situation where God speaks to Job. Job hears God, and we read chapter 42. Then Job answered the Lord and said, I know that you can do all things, and that no purpose of yours can be thwarted. And this is one of the points of the whole book. This is the point that the editor, the one who's put it all together, wants the next generation of Hebrews, Israelites to know. Trust God. You may not understand his dealings with you, but trust him. And Job says, I know that none of your purposes can be thwarted. I know that you do what is right. Verse 3. Who is this that hides counsel without knowledge? Therefore, I have uttered what I did not understand, things too wonderful for me, which I did not know. Hear, and I will speak. I will question you, and you make it known to me. I heard of you by the hearing of my ear, but now my eye sees you. Therefore I despise myself and repent in dust and ashes. And what happens is we have this amazing thing where Job's focused and is now off himself. He now looks at his three counselors, and we come to verse 7. After the Lord had spoken these words to Job, the Lord said to Eliphaz the Temanite, my anger burns against you and against your two friends, for you have not spoken of me what is right, as my servant Job has. Now, therefore, take 7 bulls and 7 rams, and go to my servant Job, and offer up a burnt offering for yourselves. And my servant Job will pray for you, and I will accept his prayer, not to deal with you according to your folly. For you have not spoken of me what is right, as my servant Job has. So Eliphaz the Temanite, and Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite went and did what the Lord had told them. And the Lord accepted Job's prayer. And this is an interesting point. In the midst of Job's ailments, he takes his focus off himself. In surrender to God, Yahweh, he prays for his 3 friends. It's an amazing principle that we see here. And notice the outcome of this. Verse 10, then the Lord restored the fortunes of Job when he had prayed for his friends. And the Lord gave Job twice as much as he had before. Then came to him all his brothers and sisters and all who had known him before, and he ate bread with them in his house. And they showed him sympathy and comforted him for all the evil that the Lord had brought upon him. And each of them gave him a piece of money and a ring of gold. And the Lord blessed the latter days of Job more than his beginning. He had 14,000 sheep, 6,000 camels, 1,000 yoke of oxen, and 1,000 female donkeys. He had also 7 sons and 3 daughters. And he called the name of the first daughter Jemimah, and the name of the second Keziah, and the name of the third Keren-Happuch. And in all the land there were no women so beautiful as Job's daughters, and their father gave them an inheritance among their brothers. And after this Job lived 140 years, and saw his sons and his sons' sons 4 generations. And Job died an old man, full of days. It's a beautiful story. It's got a powerful message. Young men, young women, notice how the daughters received an equal inheritance to the sons. And we have a principle here. Seek God, seek his wisdom. His wisdom is found in his word, by understanding his ways and his will. And by doing that, you can renew the covenant with this covenant-keeping God. And this is the story, this is the message, the point of the book of Job. And I hope as you read through it, you'll see insights there where his 3 comforters, as God said, I'm angry with you. You've misrepresented me. You've not understood. You've spoken about something you didn't understand. Now, and so isn't this the way? We would be much more, I think, beneficial to people who are suffering, instead of trying to give them answers, if we would just listen and pray with them and be there and support them. These are some of the things that we find, I think, as life lessons in the book of Job. Well, I hope you can join with me as we continue through the Bible's exilic literature. I hope this is benefiting you. Leave a comment in the comment section there. If you haven't given this a thumbs up, please do. If you haven't hit the notification bell, hit that bell. If you're not yet a subscriber, please subscribe. And you'll see me in our next installment as we dig deeper into the Bible's exilic literature.